Hey everyone, it's Bella and welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing another Mystery Monday. I know the background is not super appropriate, but I just finished filming honestly the biggest clothing haul of my whole life. So I just don't have the energy in me to move this right now. The clothing haul I just did will be in the description box if the video is already up. If not, it'll be up a day or two after this video, so just stay tuned. It's honestly the biggest and most exciting clothing haul that I've ever done. I styled all the outfits in it kind of like a lookbook as well. Definitely check that one out. And let's just go ahead and get into today's case. So today we are going to be talking about the case of TERRI BEVERS, or as she is more commonly known, Missy BEVERS. So Missy was born on the 9th of August in 1970 in the small town of Graham, Texas to James and Norma Strickland. Pretty soon after, the family moved to Jacksboro, Texas, which is, I'm pretty sure, even smaller than Graham. And she moved there with not only her family, but her other two brothers, her older brother Clifford and her younger brother Clint. When Missy was growing up, she was often described by everyone as friendly, charismatic, and selfless. She made friends so easily, and she was always very willing to help others. So she would just drop everything to help a stranger, or just put her everything into helping strangers. It's one of her passions in life was to help people. She always wanted to give back to people who needed it, and was just something she was very passionate about. In 1988, she graduated from Jacksboro High School and went straight into college. She kind of jumped around from college to college before she finally settled. She settled in at Tarleton, I think it's pronounced. I'm not sure. I always pronounce at least one thing wrong in every single one of these videos, I swear. But she graduated from there in 1995 with a Bachelor of Science. So straight out of college, Missy was kind of unsure on what she wanted to do with her life. She wasn't sure what direction she wanted to go into, so she ended up working in retail for a few years until she met Brandon BEVERS. They hit it off right away, and on the 20th of June in 1998, which was actually the day before my first birthday, they got married. Her and Brandon really complemented each other, and they just brought out the best in each other. So right after they got married, it kind of brought out this whole new motivation in Missy, and this motivation to pursue her passions. So she ended up going back to school and getting a teaching certificate in special education, and taught for several years because, like I said before, always, ever since she was younger, she was really selfless and caring, and always just wanted to give back and help the people that she felt, you know, needed help more than she did. So after teaching for a few years, she ended up quitting her job because she did fall pregnant, and on the 11th of March in 2001, Missy gave birth to her first daughter, Hannah. And she always said that she did want to eventually go back to teaching, but just felt at this time in her life the most important thing and the best thing for her to do was to stay at home and look after her daughter. A few years later, in 2003, on the 7th of March, Missy gave birth to her second daughter, Allie, and then again on the 6th of November in 2007, Missy gave birth to her daughter Sarah. Missy was a very self-motivated person with a real zest for life, so obviously she was never going to be done. She always wanted to do something more. So after she had a third daughter and she had raised them from home, she obviously wanted to get back into, you know, living life. So she got really motivated, got into fitness, bettered herself, got healthier, fitter, and then she wanted to share her passion with others. She wanted to help others, and she wanted to transform other people's lives through fitness. So she became a fitness instructor for Camp Gladiator, and Camp Gladiator was started in Texas, and it was like an outdoor group boot camp style workout. Not always outdoor, I don't know why I said that. I think it's because it's mostly outdoors, unless it was like raining or something. In that case, they would move inside. But Camp Gladiator had quite a few different spots. Kind of reminds me of F45, if you guys know of F45. In 2016, Missy and her family moved to Red Oak, which was a large town in Dallas. And there she became the head instructor for the Midlothian, I think that's how you say it, Camp Gladiator class, and she taught this at the Creekside Church. Her classes began at 5 a.m. and they went for about 45 minutes, and Missy would always get there 30 to 45 minutes before her classes so she could set up, make sure everything was all good for her students. And they were generally held outside of the church. Like I said, most often they were these camps were held outside unless it was raining. And on April 17th in 2016, Missy was watching the TV and saw that it was forecast to be raining the next day, so she hopped on Facebook, she messaged her group from Camp Gladiator and said, if it's raining, we're still training, and moved the class indoors inside the church for the next day on April the 18th. And then she went straight to bed because she did have a 3:30 a.m. wake up call to get ready and then head to the church to set up before their 5 a.m. class. The next day on the 18th of April, her students started showing up for class at around 5 a.m. and unfortunately when they entered the church they found that Missy had been brutally murdered and was inside of the church. At around 5:06 a.m. 2 students called up 911 immediately to report what they had seen, and EMTs were on the scene very soon after the calls. When EMTs arrived, they thought that they were looking at a robbery. There was glass around, there was a smashed window of the church, and they determined that Missy had been murdered from multiple puncture wounds to the head. They also determined that Missy had tried to fight her attacker. Very soon after EMTs arrived, police arrived on the scene as well and determined that the attacker had gotten into the church using a pry bar to smash in a window on the side door of the church. Due to the look of the crime scene, there was all these doors open, there was broken glass, someone had obviously broken into the church. They believed that they were dealing with a robbery that had gone wrong. They thought that somebody had broken in there to steal, and unfortunately when Missy got there, they didn't want her to identify them, and so they didn't know what else to do and murdered her. But very soon after this, police would find that this definitely was not the case. They discovered that there was surveillance footage inside and around the church, so they looked through that, and not only did it give them a timeline of what had happened, but it also showed them what had happened. The perpetrator got to the church at around 3:50 a.m. on the 18th of April, and what was really weird is they were dressed in an entire mock SWAT uniform from head to toe. They were wearing the boots, the hat, the pants, literally everything, including a vest which wrote police on the back. So from the footage, and because of what they were wearing, you couldn't tell who they were, you couldn't tell if they were a female or a male. All you could really see was, you know, what the size of their body looked like. About how high they were, it's determined they were between 5'2" and 5'7". I'm also really sorry if you hear any construction noise in the background. And another thing that you could see that was a really identifying feature was the way that they walked. They didn't walk like everyone else walked. They walked as if they had an injured right foot. So they kind of, you know, swayed a little bit and would often lean on walls to relieve their right foot, it seemed. It was a very distinctive walk. And they were also carrying a hammer in their hand. So from this footage, when they broke in, it was so more than obvious that this was not a break-in. This person wasn't here to rob. They didn't take anything. They didn't even try to. They broke in. They kind of walked around aimlessly like they were killing time, or, you know, they were just kind of meandering around, and they were opening all of the doors kind of like they were trying to make it look like a burglary. And if there was a locked door, they would try and, you know, use tools or something to open the locked door. And they would never go into any of the doors that they opened. They would just open a door, kind of pop their head in, look around, and then keep, you know, casually walking around like they didn't have a care in the world. They didn't seem nervous, they didn't seem antsy, they just seemed totally calm and totally collected. So this person walked around the church for about 30 minutes until 4:20 a.m., which is when Missy arrived. And I believe there would definitely be some footage of what happened between them and the altercation, but that footage was never released, probably for obvious reasons. It would be extremely graphic. but Missy was murdered. There was some more surveillance cameras from around the church, as I mentioned before, and they looked at them. They saw a Nissan Altima, which had a bumper sticker that they couldn't make out on the back, kind of just driving around the area. But the driver of the vehicle, unfortunately, has never been found, and they have never come forward. I'm so sorry for the construction noise. So pretty soon after this footage was released, obviously some of it was released so that hopefully they could identify a killer. But police also from this footage ruled out theft completely as an option and started investigating this as a homicide case. In their investigations, police started canvassing the area, and a few miles down at SWFA Outdoors, they also had some surveillance footage which the police took a look at, and just a few hours before the murder, they saw that same Nissan Altima driving around. And it was kind of weird the way that they were driving around. So they drove into the parking lot, turned their lights off, then they stopped for a few seconds, and then they started driving, turned their lights on again, went around the car park and just kind of left. And it was driving very slowly, and police have actually never connected this car or anything to the murders in any way. They just believe that the car is somehow connected, that maybe the murderer was driving this car or something. They have no idea. There's no actual connections, but they just believe that it has a connection somehow. So at this point, investigators didn't have a lot to go off, so they started looking into, you know, who could have done this and why would anyone have wanted to do this, any possible motives, if this was a random attack, if she knew her attacker or not, just trying to figure out any suspects really. So they started looking into Missy. They got some warrants to look through her phone and stuff like that, and they did find out from her phone messages that she was having financial difficulties. She was a mother of 3 having some financial difficulties, and she was also having some marital problems because she had been having some extramarital affairs. They found texts between her and another man flirting, and they also found texts between her and her husband Brandon, which showed that he did know about these affairs, despite the fact that him and his family were trying to act like they had no idea and that he was just finding out through the media. There are texts to prove that he did know. Another thing they found on her phone is that some creepy guy had messaged her on LinkedIn that she thought was creepy. That's all that I could find about this creepy guy, so I'm not sure if there's any more information, if this guy could be a suspect. I don't even know who this guy is, but I just thought it was something to note. Another thing that I thought was weird was she was flirting with a guy over LinkedIn as well, which seems like a weird place to message, but maybe she thought that her husband wouldn't look at LinkedIn, I don't know. So of course, after seeing these texts showing that Brandon knew about the extramarital affairs and that she was having affairs, the police, as well as the public who were following this case, immediately jumped on him and thought that he had something to do with this. So 2 days after Missy was murdered, he went into the police station to talk to police, and the reason that he didn't come in until 2 days later is because he was actually in Mississippi on a fishing trip. I mean, instantly people would have just been like, okay, this guy did it, you know, he has motive, who else would have done it, she's cheating on him, he knows about it. It's the most obvious thing. But like I said, he was in Mississippi on a fishing trip which he had been planning for ages. His phone records prove it, the people that he was there with prove it, his dad confirmed it, even though his dad wasn't with him, so I don't know why it matters that his dad confirmed it. So some people were so convinced that this guy was guilty, and the fact that he was out of town, they obviously started looking around at how we could have done this, and the first place that they went is his father, Randy, Missy's father-in-law. So there isn't a whole lot of evidence to suggest that this would be Randy, except for the fact that he walks so similarly to the guy in the video. I actually found a video on YouTube which compares their 2 walks, so I will put that on the screen for you guys to look at. And they have that he's within the height. He's also around the same, you know, weight and shape as the person in the video, and he is around the same height as the person in the video. So that's why a lot of people were like, okay, you know, he was either mad for his son or his son asked him to do it. It's him. Now, to make things even weirder, 4 days after Missy was murdered, Randy took in a women's extra large shirt to the dry cleaners, which had just been soaked in blood. It looked like he had tried to wash it himself before but couldn't get the blood out, and that's why he was taking it to the dry cleaners. And the dry cleaner was obviously very suspicious about this, but Randy just told them that, you know, there was a Chihuahua that had been attacked by another dog, which they had to take to the vet, so the blood is that of a Chihuahua. The dry cleaners weren't convinced, so they called the police, and the police got a warrant to test the shirt, and turns out it actually wasn't the blood of a human, and the vet did end up confirming that he was telling the truth, that they had brought in an injured Chihuahua. But it was still like a very weird thing, and a lot of people really held on to that for some reason, even though I myself don't know why. I don't think there's any reason to hold on to that. I mean, obviously, you know, it was confirmed. There's no way it has anything to do with the murder. It's the blood of a Chihuahua, not a human. But people still thought that it was really sus. Another thing is that Randy was actually apparently in California at the time of the murders. So if he was in California, then there's no way he possibly could have done it because he wasn't in Texas. I mean, to me personally, I kind of think it's a little bit sus in itself that both Randy and Brandon were out of state at the time of the murder, almost like it was planned that both of them were just randomly out of state at the time of the murder. Maybe they knew that this murder was going to take place, or they knew who was doing it, or they had something to do with it and hired someone. And because of that, maybe they both went on trips out of state so that they both had alibis. Something to think about. So because both of these guys were cleared because they both had alibis, so obviously because both of these men were cleared because they had alibis, police obviously had to start looking elsewhere and looking into other suspects, and the first was this man. He attended Missy's classes, and he had a wife who was a similar build. She was short and she was kind of stocky, and she also had a broken right foot at the time. But they were quickly ruled out. I'm not sure why they were quickly ruled out, but I guess there's no reason to suspect them. I mean, why would the man randomly do it? Or his wife, I don't know. Another suspect, and pretty much the only other suspect they had in this case, actually, it was a woman named April Sandoval. She won a few free classes with Camp Gladiator after she was struggling to lose some baby weight. She attended 4 out of the 5 of the classes that she won, and during those classes, she was in a group photo with Camp Gladiator, which is how the police even discovered her in the first place. She had an injured right foot, and she was about the same build and same height as the suspect. She had also been arrested previously, and she was currently paying rent on a Nissan Altima. As I mentioned before, was the car captured on video around the church. April did claim that the car was her mother's and that she had never driven it before, and she was ruled out as well. I'm not sure why. I think it was because the whole case against her was circumstantial. They had no evidence to suggest that it was her or anything of the sort, so I guess there was nothing more they can do. And unfortunately, like I said, she was the only suspect that I had. So that means that it is time to get into the theories. The first theory is that this was an unmotivated and unplanned murder. It's not totally impossible, but I kind of find it hard to believe that the person in the video was not there to murder someone. I mean, clearly they weren't there for any more reason. This theory goes that they were just there to vandalize the church, but in my honest opinion, I feel like if you were there to vandalize the church, you'd do a lot more than just smash a window in. They just opened doors. I mean, they weren't actually vandalizing the church, so this theory is kind of a bit far-fetched to me. They just say that maybe Missy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. They didn't know Missy was going to be there, and they didn't want her to dob on them, so they killed her. Which, I mean, vandalizing a church to murder, it seems like a really huge step up as well. Another theory within this theory is that this was an unplanned murder, but the person, the suspect, did want to murder someone, just not necessarily Missy. Whether they just wanted to murder someone just to murder someone, or whether they wanted to murder someone who they knew regularly went to that church, or someone who attended Missy's class, and Missy just happened to be there, and so they ended up murdering her. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, because if you did want to murder a regular churchgoer, why would you be there at 3:50 a.m? Why would you want to do it at the church where there's going to be a bunch of other people coming if you don't even know they're going to be there? And if it was a Camp Gladiator person, then why would you want to... I mean, there's going to be other people there. It doesn't make sense to me, this theory either. This theory is even more far-fetched than the first one. The next theory is that this person was hired to kill Missy. This kind of ties in with what I was speaking about before with Brandon, and that maybe he did hire someone to kill Missy, and that's why both him and his dad were out of town, because they both knew that it was going to happen. Maybe he had discussed it with his dad and they both needed alibis, so they both left town. Or maybe he hired his dad Randy to do it, because Randy does have a similar, you know, posture, walk, size, height to the person who did it. So maybe he wasn't actually in California. I do think that I don't know, I don't believe that it was Randy. I know that they look extremely similar, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that he was proven to have been on his flight both to and from California, and so it couldn't have been him. But I still do believe that they could have known who was going to kill her, and that's why they were both out of the state. I mean, they both have motive. Randy could have been angry for his son, and Brandon could have been extremely angry about the affairs. So they both definitely have motive, in my opinion. Brandon would also definitely know when Missy has work, where she works, all of that kind of stuff. So it's not too far-fetched that he could have hired someone to kill her. He knew that she would be there alone, because he would know that she gets there half an hour to 45 minutes before anyone else does. I honestly feel like this is one of the most probable theories, just because, I mean, who else could have done it? It makes sense, and they are a bit suspicious, but a lot of things don't add up. The last theory is this is not actually someone that Missy knew, but rather someone who knew her or knew of her. She did have a little bit of a social media presence, so she was on Instagram and stuff like that, you know, posting fitness things, and did gain a little bit of a following. So it's possible that, you know, someone knew of her, knew where she was going to be, knew that she held these classes, and, you know, was jealous of her or angry, or for whatever reason could have murdered her. Or maybe it was not to do with followers at all. Maybe it was the wife of the person she was having an affair with, because it was alleged that the man she was having an affair with did have a wife who was pregnant at the time. So it is definitely possible that a pregnant wife who was, you know, Missy was having an affair with her husband, did this out of anger or jealousy. I also think that is a very, very probable theory, although I do think it would be, you know, hard to murder someone while pregnant. I'm not sure. But yeah, that is everything. I would love to know if you guys have any other theories, what theory you think is the most probable. I would also love for you to comment down below and let me know of any cases you would like me to do in next week's video, and hopefully I will see you guys next time. Bye!